Hey, everybody, welcome back to Turn Bark Time. I'm the Turn,
I'm the Bark.
and we're going to be here a long time. Bark, Season 3, Episode 12. Oh, I apologize. The technical difficulties were on my end on Wednesday night. Internet was down in sections of Quincy until probably about 11:45 midnight. So that led my fiance and I to playing a rousing 2 rounds of Trivial Pursuit. I will say that I won both rounds, but she's kicking my butt currently. She won the first game tonight 6-0, and I think our second game she's up 5-3. So I'm getting my butt handed to me today.
I think it's also important to recognize that you are not the problem. Somebody did not call before they dug and digged what they should not have dug.
Yep. What is that number? Dial 811, folks, before you dig. Is it 811? I think it's 811.
I don't know. I have a distinct memory of like my 6th birthday and that being a very prevalent commercial on television. In 1991,
and it just
in 1991, it was the coolest birthday because I got a Ninja Turtles hat that was white with a purple bill, and I got a flight jacket. And for Christmas, we all got these like fighter jets.
Oh, dope!
Anyway, and mine was the Black Widow Squadron was the little patch that came with it. So
heck yeah, I was correct. It is 811. So explore damage prevention information, local contracts and rules for safe digging in Washington. 811, folks.
811. Call before you dig.
Call before you dig. Hey, we're going to talk about this really cool thing. We talked about this at the end of our thing, and it is a big bill. And that is, we're going to talk about money that exists in the United States that some of them technically can still be spent, which would be crazy.
I think looking at the ones that we found, there was like the Investopedia or whatever had the article. There was like the 6 rare paper currencies, I think. And I think all of them but one is still technically legal tender. Not that some of them you would want to sell for or exchange. You wouldn't want to exchange them at face value because they're worth far more due to their rarity.
What's really cool, though, when I was looking at this, I was explaining this to some of my students. So shout out to Quincy middle schoolers if you're watching. That we were talking about going in, and our grocery store in Quincy, for those of you in Longview, is called Aikens, and we basically have 2 main grocery stores in town, and so we're like, yeah, just go in, you're gonna buy your bag of Takis for $2 and hand them the good old $500 bill. Be like, can you break that for me? Chances are they probably could, but it would just be weird. So,
Aikens is the unofficial bank of Quincy.
They can be.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Like, so we in the United States, I guess the kind of accepted pantheon of money, paper money, is of course the $1 bill, the $5 bill, the 10, the 20, the 50 and the 100. Sorry, it's a lot of bills to keep in track there. But we generally accept that there's nothing bigger than a $100 bill. A few years back here locally in Longview, somebody took a $200 bill, which does not exist.
Yeah, that's not real. So please don't. We also left off the $2 bill as well, which is a little
$2 bill is the rarest of paper money, not by much. They estimate there's 1.4 billion $2 bills in circulation.
How is it the rarest then?
Compare like to the ones that are still being printed.
Oh, right.
Of paper currencies that are still being levels are being maintained. So if you didn't know that about money, it's like putting water in a pool. You don't want not enough because then you fall in and break your neck when you dive. And then if you put too much water in the pool, it flows over the edge. Which is bad. But I think what was the next one? The 50. There's 1.7 $50 bills in circulation. Huh. So it sounds close because it's only 0.3, but that's actually, I guess, 300 million.
Yeah,
which is a lot of 50s. Yeah, more 50s than I've ever held.
But when you think about it, right? Like, I was thinking about this the other day because I was in Aikens actually shopping, and I saw somebody exchanging money. They wanted, they wanted a bill broken and stuff like that. And the the clerk had said, do you want it in 20s? They were breaking 100, I think. And the person actually asked for a 50, and the person didn't have it in their till. Just because it's the norm currency is 20s, 10s, 5s, 1s, and then hundreds happen to swing by every now and then. But I was like thinking, when was the last time you had a $50 bill?
I have a $50 bill in my wallet as we speak.
Well, then that is not a strong point that I have just made.
And I was kind of wondering about that. Like, so if you look at it, a lot of these, so living in Kuwait, where Kuwait's one of the strongest currencies in the world, little bird walk here. One Kuwaiti, it's actually the dollar's up or the dinar's down, one way or the other. Because when I was there, it was like 375 to 350, and I think it's down to like 325.
Okay.
But like one dinar is worth $3.25. But the biggest bill that they use in Kuwait is a 20.
Really?
Like there's no paper money bigger than a 20. And I've always wondered about that. Like you need a lot of paper money to do things. But I think we've entered this point where so many people just use bank cards and checks and cashier's checks. So like you don't need the physical money. And as I was looking at like a lot of these really big bills will be pulled out of circulation during the Nixon administration. And one of the reasons for it was they were trying to prevent money laundering. And so if you have bigger bills, if I can figure out how to if I can launder one really big bill, I've cleared a whole bunch of money. As opposed to if I'm trying to launder money now, if you're a fan of like Ozarks or Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, you know that it's a ton, like it's a physical task to move that much currency. And I think that's part of that's on purpose. That's purposeful.
Right.
Because it's much harder instead of having to move 100, or like a couple $100,000 bills, which could fit in your wallet. You now have to load up a panel van, to move all that money.
It's also, we were talking about this. I was talking about this with some people. I was talking about actually with Scott Ramsey and who else was I talking about? I was talking about somebody else, but it was crazy. Could you imagine someone's like, "Congratulations, Jonathan Baca, you have won $1 million," and then they hand you just 10 bills, $100,000 bills. How disappointed! Like in our minds, we think of $1 million, right? We think of this big stack of cash, and it's like, here you go. So obviously, one of the things I just mentioned, the largest bill the United States has is the $100,000 bill, which was actually only made, I believe, 1 year, correct? In terms of,
I don't have a year for that one. The $100,000 bill stands out for me because it's the only one that it's actually illegal for a private citizen to own.
Yeah.
So it's an internal treasury note, so it's only used by Federal Reserve banks to move large sums of money from one bank to another.
Yep.
So if you have one, you're a criminal.
Also, don't tell anybody about it because you're committing a crime.
But I guess take a picture of it and make it into an NFT and then you're okay. I don't know.
Look for the t-shirt later.
Yeah. And I think that one actually is gold certificate too.
Yep.
And it's got, who's on it? Woodrow Wilson, right?
That's Woodrow Wilson on it. Yeah. So what I have right here, so I was looking, if you go to Wikipedia, you can see a great spreadsheet of all the bills that have been made. And I think under series is their print dates, and how long they were printed for. And I think the $100,000 bill, the only thing on there is 1934. But again, it's under type, so I'm no expert in bills. Was never in circulation, therefore cannot be legally held. They stress that, obviously. So please, 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 if you have $100,000 bill, don't do it. And give it back, I guess. So, from there, so this is the other thing that I found fascinating when we were doing this, right? Because you and I were having this conversation, is that the $100,000 bill, right? It's so massive, but when we talk about the smaller, quote unquote, smaller bills, it actually has some people that we've seen and we still see on money today, and they were on these massive bills. So I guess let's talk about the next smallest bill. which is going to be the $10,000 bill, right?
Yes, which is, so I guess from this point on, it's important to say that all of these bills are still technically what's called legal tender. You could technically spend this as money. They're no longer in print, but I guess they're still in circulation, I guess is the way to say that, right? Like
Yeah.
I think the government would remove them from circulation if the government got a hold of them, but
Mm-hmm.
some of them still exist and they still are technically legally money.
Yeah.
But all of them, excluding the $2 bill, are worth way more than their face value
Yeah.
as a
So
historical collector's item rather than as actual currency.
So one of the things we were actually looking up before the episode, last week's episode, we were the history of unicorns. We were looking up um, the brain fart. Sorry, I was looking up what it would cost to like buy a bill to see like if I could have it by the time this episode would air and everything like that. And the obviously I went for one of the lower ones, and it was actually about let's see if I do my math correctly. It was about 150% marked up from what its value was. And I'll explain that later when we get to like what the bill was and how much you could find it. And again, I found it on eBay, and it was actually still being bid on, so it wasn't necessarily. It could have gone for even higher than that. But like you said, the collection and circulation. This is what I again found something super cool is that the first set of $10,000 bills have all been collected. The
Oh,
government
really?
has them all. Yeah, so all notes have been redeemed. There are none out in the world. They all are accounted for. So, and that was the first one that was ever printed. That was 1878. And it had Andrew Jackson, right? The guy on the 20 was also on the $10,000 bill. Like just crazy.
But then he eventually, so a lot of these bills too, like you've been saying, like there's been a history of different people on there. And I think, what is it? The most prevalent is Solomon P. Chase.
Yeah, so
Thomas P.
he's on the
Chase.
most recent. So his is 1928 until 1934 when it's decommissioned not. I guess I'll use the word decommissioned, but it's out of print. They don't print it anymore.
And he was the treasurer under Lincoln.
Yep.
And then also the governor and a senator of Ohio. And I think we said a justice.
The sixth Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. This dude had himself a life. He knew what was going on. So
YOLO.
seriously. By the way, side note, just want to tell you, for all y'all who use the word YOLO, the people who were YOLOing long before you all knew about YOLOing, long before Barker and I lived, I'm calling this right now. 1920s was the official YOLO years, where people were buying on credit with no savings. That's YOLO if I've ever heard it. Anyway, back to our bills.
Showing their ankles.
Seriously.
Living their best life.
Those flappers.
So before, or so I guess I'm the next smallest bill is if you cut that in half and you go to $5,000, right? So you think about this. This is like, for a lot of people, this could be a monthly paycheck in a single bill.
Ha.
Here's your paycheck and it's one bill. Blow your mind.
Yeah.
And it's, let's see what I have. I came out during the Civil War era. Most prevalently features James Madison.
Yep.
Who was a president, if you didn't know that.
He never had
a son, but he won the War of 1812.
1812. Animaniacs still helping us out. Hashtag Animaniacs.
But again, just the idea of like, that's a lot of money. And I think a lot of it starts in the Civil War era, and then you'll see a lot of these big bills again come out during the Depression era, or as America's trying to recover from the Depression, because again, you need to stimulate the economy by giving people more money, right? Just like through COVID, there was some stimmy checks that were put out by the Biden administration to try and help people stay afloat or support small businesses. So.
And one of the things that else is interesting is you see also though as the New Deal kind of gets into effect, right? 1932, Roosevelt takes office. He starts pushing through his stuff. Am I right? 32? Does that sound right? I'm having a brain fart.
Nah, it sounds.
Yeah, he wins 31. He wins in 31, gets elected in 32. Yeah, I think I'm right. But what's interesting is that 34, right, working through the banking crises and stuff like that, is where you start seeing these huge bills drop off. and start to disappear. 1934 seems to be like the year where we as a country got rid of a lot of these. So yeah, James Madison all over there. What's cool is again, if you're interested in this, I love knowing how many of them are out there still. Like obviously they're not going to be advertised. Not many of these are even going to be sold. But the 1878 James Madison $5,000 bill is the same as the Andrew Jackson, where they've all the notes have been redeemed and there's none out there. And I think that's interesting that all the government has found and collected all of this, and it's not out and available for anybody anymore. But other thing that I thought was cool, and as we kind of work our way through, is like James Madison is the most prevalent guy on this, but there's like new Ironsides, right? So like the new USS Constitution, there's Justice, right? There's different pieces of this, right? Like E pluribus unum is on all our money, but like it's an eagle with a shield with E pluribus unum. Like that's the main part of the money. It's not, somebody's head right in the middle, like a portrait and everything like that. But I shall continue. So we're going to take that $5,000 bill and we are going to chop it into 5 pieces. That next one is going to be the $1,000 bill. Most prevalent, or at the end of it, most prevalent is Grover Cleveland. But before that, most prevalent is Alexander Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton. Right? Again, the guy on the 10 is also on the $1,000 bill in the 1870s. And in the 1870s. And then there's a couple he's on again in 1918. So he's on it a couple of different times. But
I think it goes like Hamilton, Jackson, Hamilton, Cleveland, which I think Grover Cleveland still holds. He's he's the only president to have non-consecutive terms. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. He's the 22nd and the 24th president.
Yeah. Didn't he go? What did he do? Did he go? No, I'm thinking of Taft. Went to be a justice, but that's later. So, but yeah, I love that fact. Other cool people on the $1,000 bill that you might not know. George Meade, the general during the Civil War. William Marcy, who I had to look up. He was one of the people. He's held 2 cabinet positions. Let me double check to make sure I'm not getting this wrong. Yeah, so he was the Secretary of the State under Franklin Pierce and James Buchanan, and then he was also the Secretary of War under James K. Polk. So, interesting stuff. Like, it's just cool. Like, I've never heard of that guy.
During the Washington westward expansion era, organizing the Northwest, getting angry at Mexico.
Yeah. But then speaking of Mexico, like one of the things on the $1,000 bill is Winfield Scott entering Mexico City, right, to end the Mexican-American War, and Washington resigning his commission. Like that's the bill. I was like, that's kind of cool, right? Like there are other countries around the world that have more imagery, I guess, on their money. Their money's more fun than ours.
Definitely more colorful.
Yes.
Up until like more recently, I guess the 50 and the 100 got the makeover to make them a little bit more colorful, but it's still pretty bland in comparison to other countries. And one of the other interesting things is that we pretty much have a standard bill size in America that regardless of the value of the bill, all the bills are the same. I guess my biggest experience with foreign money is in Kuwait. In Kuwait, the bigger the bill, the bigger the value of the bill, the bigger the bill, the smaller the value, the smaller of it, all the way down to like a half or quarter Kuwaiti dinar, which is like, it's almost like the size of like Monopoly money.
Oh,
as
really?
opposed to like a 20, where like a 20 is, what I mean? Like it's like the size of like a regular dollar bill, but like it progressively gets smaller in the same way that we do with coins, minus the dime, because
we're confusing. Yeah. And then the other one we were talking about, which was fun, is like who is DeWitt Clinton? And DeWitt Clinton gets here. And this is what blows my mind, because these are national currency, right? DeWitt Clinton, in my mind, made an impact on the nation, but he was really making an impact on New York. Like he wants to be president, but he actually is governor of New York for a long, long time and will push the Erie Canal funding through, which obviously will connect the Atlantic Ocean to the Great Lakes, which will lead to that. Go ahead.
But could you argue that's because maybe New York is like a financial center of the nation?
Absolutely. Thanks to Alexander Hamilton.
Yeah. Got to move that capital further south.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. And then Robert Morris, which I thought was interesting too, gets a shot at it too. He's actually the first one on there. And he is a founding father by definition. He is a part of the Second Continental Congress and everything like that. Becomes the U.S. It looks like a U.S. Superintendent of Finance. When we are not we are under the Articles of Confederation, not the U.S. Constitution. And then becomes U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania. But it's just like who'd have thunk, right? Like some of these, and then again, like Wikipedia has this again, just basic. It just says how many are known to exist. Not even necessarily if they're available.
so he's technically not on a dollar. He's on a continental.
No, because
no. Because they print it. You're just saying that he was there during that time period, not on a continental. My bad.
Oh, sorry. No, absolutely. Yeah, he's absolutely, and that's what's crazy is, right, like when this first gets printed, he's printed, looks like 1862 to 1863, so that middle of Civil War era. And again, which you would make that connection a little bit with the financial superintendent, right, during that time period, and then having that pro-independence kind of thing, right? With the South being rebellious, you're going to go back to your roots. Okay, so now we're going to get to the bill that I looked at purchasing, but did not think it was a wise investment since I'm getting married in about a month, 2 months. So probably should spend my money more wisely than that. And that is the $500 bill. And these you can find them on eBay, actually. There are multiples out there. The one that I had found at the time had about 2 days worth of bidding left, and has William McKinley on there, one of the presidents to get assassinated.
25th president.
Yep, 25th president, and they wanted $751 at that time for the bid. Again, I was kind of like, ooh, that could be kind of fun, just to own something like that. But then I thought to myself, why would I want to own something like that? Like, it's just something that you like pull out and be like, hey, check out my $500 bill, right? And then you lock it back up in your safe because it's worth more than $500.
Yeah, and I was doing some research and I found that the $500 bill, depending on the grade of the condition, sells anywhere from like $650 to $850. And obviously more now, probably because with inflation. The article was a few years old.
I was gonna say, because some of the higher ones I saw were pushing $1,200 to $1,500 for that, and it's like, I mean, again, you are owning a very piece of history that is rare. I mean, it's rare by definition. So,
and I would say, just because once upon a time I worked at a convenience store, a general store, Baker's Corner,
a general store,
a mainstay of Longview's economy. Unpaid solicitation there, but one of the things that we would learn is that if somebody came in, we called it pirate money. If it was gold coins or silver coins, or like, we would call it pirate money because it's not just regular money. It's actually precious metal, kind of a deal. And we also learned that you would keep it and kind of save it back because it might have meant that somebody robbed somebody, and like, if somebody breaks into a house, they just see money. They see it as money. So like, if you're ever working at a job and somebody comes in and gives you a 500,000 or 5,000 or 10,000, in the rare event that it were to happen, you should probably contact local authorities and make sure that nobody who has a money collection has just been robbed,
right?
Because it's kind of like one of those, like, if you're a pawnbroker and you start peddling stolen stuff, you're going to be SOL when all that stuff gets repossessed, and you're, I'm sorry, you stole something that you don't. Yeah, you can't get reimbursed for the value of a stolen product.
Nope. Sorry.
You know what I mean? So it's one of those things that, if in the event that you do see one, like, we have a silver certificate dollar that was given to Tara or her mom as change from a coffee stand.
Really?
Yeah, like, but again, it's like, not thinking about it, and they didn't realize it until later, but probably was in somebody's like stash of important, like, cool dollar bills, and somebody joinked it. Like I've got to hide it. Like I'm thinking about my kids. My kids hunt all over the house. If there's change, it goes in their piggy bank. Like they don't give any qualms about.
Nope.
They don't care if it's a silver coin or a gold coin or whatever. Or
great capitalists.
Yeah, So it could just be an honest mistake too. And so like I've never sat there and I can't even think of where it's at now. But like, it's kind of neat when you find those things. And I know I have a cousin who was in Iraq, was a Marine in Fallujah, and bought a bunch of like Iraqi dinar because they thought, oh, it's going to rebound. It's going to rebound. I mean, we're buying it for pennies on the dollar now, and now it's not worth. It's like having a bunch of Confederate money.
Yeah.
It's not really currency anymore. And that's what triggered in my mind doing all of this research, kind of in a macroeconomics lens, is like, why did Nixon in the 60s, like, why did we start bringing it all in and like, knocking it off? Like what was the purpose there? And so it all kind of goes back to America was experiencing stagflation, which is inflation and very little economic growth. And so one of the problems is that it's the Bretton Woods system that was developed after World War II to help buoy. So like we listened to Woodrow Wilson from World War I, and instead of punishing everybody like Germany and Japan, we rebuild them as trade partners and whatnot. And so like the American dollar kind of becomes the dominant currency that's keeping it's the buoy that keeps all of the other currencies afloat. Yeah. And it has a set exchange rate for gold. Mm-hmm. And so, but one of the problems is that, again, you've just tied your economy to all these other nations' economies, and then eventually it works, and Germany and Japan are able to rebuild, and then they start competing with American products. And then it's like, oh no. And then other countries have American dollars. And so there's kind of this, how do we take control of our currency again? And so Nixon goes through, it's called the Nixon shock. And I feel that the more modern the history, the less time gets spent in a public school getting to it, because you're fighting this idea of like, we always start in the same spot and we spend so much time on it. And then like, we know the least about the most recent stuff because there's still research coming out.
Right.
But essentially like,
and everything like that.
His idea was to try and bring that money back in so that we could put out smaller bills and have more control over the circulation of money. And devalue the U.S. currency internationally. Like he said, we're no longer going to exchange it for gold. Like there's no longer going to be a set.
Yeah, we come off the gold. We come off the gold standard.
Yeah, there's no longer an exchange for gold, like a set exchange number for gold. It's going to go back to like a free market value of what the price of gold is, which is why some people buy scrap gold and just keep it in a can in the yard, like your depression or a great grandpa. But because it's always going to appreciate. You know what I mean? And that's one of the interesting things to talk about, like trying to talk to kids about, like if you just took paper money, like Pablo Escobar, and dug a hole and put it in a hole, it technically is going to lose value.
Yeah.
Because of inflation, that money is now worth less. Mm-hmm. And so these bills, it's really interesting that as much as everybody's trying to find ways to like flex wealth on people, like just watch something where I think it was Logan Paul bought like the most expensive Pikachu card.
Yeah.
It's like $5 million Pikachu card or whatever. It's just so he could flex on people that he has a
Pikachu card.
A piece of laminated cardboard with a electric rat on it.
Yeah.
That's worth $5 million. And it's probably worth more than a $10,000 bill is. Yeah. When you think about the history of how that helped save the American economy versus this pocket monster. But it's one of those interesting things for me. Like I hadn't really thought about like why keep the money small.
Yeah. I would have never thought that.
It makes total sense now as a way to try and make money laundering harder. The smaller the units, the more units you have to move. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, it's actually really smart.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was kind of my takeaway. I went down this rabbit hole of the International Money Fund and like international monetary policy.
See, and I was just looking for anywhere you could find like the bill. Like, I'd scoured eBay, I scoured like just different trading websites and things like that, pawn shops. Like it was interesting to see, like, is there something out there that you can find like a legit one that's not as expensive? And the answer is no, you can't, because they are so rare. So
in the event that you have one or you come across one,
yeah, especially $100,000 bill.
yeah, best to call the government
Yeah.
and make sure that it's checked out. Be a good person and make sure you're not going to get yourself in trouble.
Nope.
But yeah, just really interesting. Because like, I don't know, even in the 50s that we get, because at our bank, our credit union, if you ask for multiple hundreds of dollars of cash, it will give you some of it in 20s, and then it will give you the rest of it in 50s, which is the only reason that we have 50s. Like, I don't, since being back in Longview, this is the most that we've actually gone to a bank and banked
Yeah.
in a long time.
Yeah.
I don't think I've actually been inside of a bank in about 5 years.
Yeah.
Like, I've not physically stepped foot. I've driven up next to one and put things in the magical tube.
Oh yeah.
Kids love it.
My
But
dogs do too, because it comes back with dog biscuits.
yeah, it's just, and it's getting in the way. Like, think about if they eliminate the penny, because pennies cost more to make than they're worth. Will pennies eventually, other than wheatback pennies, which I guess are, I don't know how much those are worth, but
yeah,
like 5 cents or something. I don't know.
But I mean, yeah, because it's just copper, right? Not even copper. It's what it's like nickel painted copper or something like that. I don't remember what it is.
Plated or something like that.
Yeah.
But there's a little line in the middle. You can look at all you with a penny at home, if you know what those are. It's got Abraham Lincoln on it. You can see the little ring in the middle. It's like you can see the copper on the outsides, and there's the silver metal in the middle. So
yeah. So fun topic.
Yeah. And it just makes me wonder, like, because like one of the ways that the first thing that tells you you have silver coins is the sound.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things. It's a skill. Like, I don't know. Maybe other generations aren't going to have that because they're just not going to be used to having as much change. I asked that was one of my hallway questions of the day was card or cash, and I am very rarely a cash person.
Yeah.
I card everything, and with point of sale technology getting smaller and more mobile, I really think that that's going to be the way of the future.
I saw it we went to Yakima and we're visiting, and there was a grocery store that my fiance loves to go to because it's like a healthier grocery store, and the Girl Scouts are in the foyer, and the mom had a point of sale machine, so the Girl Scouts could take credit cards. And I mean, like, I know they have their online business and everything like that, but man,
they're adapting.
I love it. It's my favorite. I will support them 110% to eat their cookies. So, yeah, just a good thing. So, Bark, anything else to kind of add on to this one?
I promised to send a shout out. Well, I didn't promise. I guess I was asked if they could. There was an offer of a sponsorship, but then there was no talk of money. But Main Stage Theater in Longview, Main Stage Theater is putting on a production of SpongeBob the Musical.
Oh, fantastic.
And I believe that their ticket sales are now available. I should have done more research and figured out what date they're doing it. But if you're interested in watching SpongeBob the Musical at Ari Long Theater, tickets are on sale or will be on sale soon. So come out and support the local theater, which in Longview, if you're from Longview, you know that Main Stage does a great job. A lot of people in the community have been there. They start as high schoolers or even younger, and now are adult community members and still give their time and efforts to put on amazing shows for the greater Cowlitz County community.
I am looking right now. I'm trying to find it. It says I'm blocked. So I did something wrong.
You were a stranger.
I probably. What month are we in? March. Nope, I think this hasn't been updated yet. Oh well. But hey, if you're in Longview and you want to go to the Main Stage Theater, give a huge shout out SpongeBob the Musical. That's a fantastic performance. I look forward to hearing all about it. Just because I don't go to Longview very often, but that will be a very, very cool thing. So shout
It's
out.
gonna run. I found it. It's gonna run from May 12th, 13th, 14th, the 20th. So it's gonna run for 2 weekends from May 12th to May 22nd.
Fantastic.
Friday and Saturday will be 7:30 shows, and then a Sunday matinee at 2.
Perfect.
So
Fantastic. Well,
if you
good
have
luck.
questions, you can contact. Probably I'm gonna throw Ari Long ASB under the bus and say Miss Jamie would love to answer your phone call. She's not. I don't think she's a follower, so I won't get in trouble giving her extra work.
Perfect. Excellent. Now, as long as that doesn't cause a disruption at your school, because my kids are learning about the First Amendment and how kids can speak their minds at school as long as it does not cause a substantial disruption to the learning process. So hopefully that does not do that to Miss Jamie's job.
Define substantial.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Define the. What did we talk about next week?
We have not talked about next week.
Okay. Gonna have to tune in. I guess I'll make a reel later on in the week, or shoot us an idea if you have one based off of this. It'd be fun to learn. So, Mark, anything else?
You already asked me that, and I gave you SpongeBob the Musical.
Well, I was hoping for more because I mean, once you deliver SpongeBob the Musical, I wanted an encore performance. I didn't get it. I will live with that. Until next time, or sorry, until next time, I'm the Turn.
I'm the Bark.
It's gonna be here a long time. Have a good night, everybody.
Be safe.
And be well.